How's it going, you guys? So in this video, I'm going to be discussing vitamin B1 deficiency, also known as beriberi. The reason why I'm making this video is because I've stumbled upon a lot of information that suggests that vitamin B1 deficiency might actually be a lot more common than we think. And especially in a lot of people who are following a low-carb diet, but even more so in people that are following a standard American diet or any diet that's high in refined carbs. Now, let me explain a couple things about why even somebody on a low-carb diet who's eating nothing but whole animal foods that are supposed to be relatively high in B1 could still be suffering from a deficiency in the nutrient. So, first and foremost, I can't speak for everyone, but I would say most people have spent a pretty significant portion of their lives, whether it's 10, 20 years, probably in their childhood, probably in their younger years, consuming a lot of white rice, consuming a lot of refined carbohydrates in general, things like pasta, sugar, even things like jasmine rice, or even if it's fortified rice, okay? A lot of these grains have been fortified with thiamine or vitamin B1. Because this is actually how we discovered vitamin B1 deficiency in the first place. We discovered vitamin B1 deficiency in Japan, where they started to polish the rice. They removed the hull, they removed all the nutrients basically by refining it down to white rice, and they started to develop the symptoms that we now know are caused by B1 deficiency, and probably a whole host of other nutrients as well. So that led the government and pretty much every country to start fortifying most forms of white rice, okay, with B1, thiamine, and as well as other nutrients as well, including iron and other B vitamins like niacin. But there's a couple problems with that. The first one is that not all refined carbohydrates are fortified with thiamine, okay? So jasmine white rice, which is the form of white rice that I generally recommend if people are going to eat white rice, due to the potential of iron overload from the fortified rice. But jasmine rice now does not contain any fortification at all, and because it's a refined carbohydrate, you're going to be burning up B1, burning up thiamine to process the carbohydrates in the rice as energy, but because the food does not contain the B1 that whole rice would generally contain, now you're going to end up using up your thiamine and causing a deficiency. And the amount that's found in the animal foods is not likely to make up for a long-term overconsumption of refined carbohydrates that most people have gone through. And so obviously, if people are consuming a refined carbohydrate diet, they're consuming high amounts of carbs, which uses up their B1, and they're not consuming B1 from those carbohydrates that would normally have it because they're refined, and that definitely includes sugar, because sugar is probably the most notorious for this because it's not fortified at all, it's just pure white carbohydrate. And so you end up using up your body stores of thiamine, which experts believe you can use up all your stores of thiamine from anywhere from 7 days to 30 days, from anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks. And so another thing is, just because you're not demonstrating severe, dangerous symptoms of full-blown B1 deficiency does not mean that you might be lacking in sufficient thiamine. A lot of people, I'm starting to believe now, might actually be deficient in thiamine, but not enough to where they develop the deadly symptoms of like the neurological damage that's permanent and things and the cardiovascular damage that's permanent and things like that. But things like shortness of breath, lethargy and fatigue, malaise, pins and needles, a feeling of disassociation from the body, that air hunger, breathlessness, like they can't get a deep breath, and what they call depersonalization syndrome, and things like anxiety, chronic fatigue, and even fibromyalgia. These are all very, classic symptoms of B1 deficiency, but they're also symptoms of a variety of other nutrient deficiencies and other things as well. For example, if you're just overworking yourself, you could be excessively tired. If you're sleep deprived, you can be excessively tired. But the interesting thing is, the more stress your body's under, the greater its need for thiamine. Typically, thiamine deficiency can also result in insomnia, and the deficiency itself can actually hinder energy production at the level of the mitochondria. That's what B1's biggest role is in the body, is producing energy from carbohydrates and from fats, and ultimately to produce ATP. And I believe to clear lactic acid out from the body by converting it, recycling it for energy. Something to that extent. But the point is, directly, B1 is required for energy, and indirectly, it can cause insomnia, which can hinder your energy down the line as well. And so now the thing is, even if you're on, so let's say that, someone like me who was eating a large amount of jasmine white rice for a long time, I was also consuming a lot of tea and coffee, especially since I started low carb, because the bulletproof coffee, without it, low carb just doesn't feel right. Tea, the polyphenols and tannins in tea and coffee can actually hinder the absorption of B1. And so can alcohol, and sulfites can also hinder the metabolism of B1 to some extent. So I find all of this very, very, very interesting, especially because another thing is B1 is mostly required for carbohydrate metabolism, but like I said before, it's also still to an extent required for fat to produce energy from fat. But you need more thiamine for high carb diets, but you still need it to produce energy from fat. And so for me and many other people, when we switch from a high carb diet to a low fat diet, we experience a boost in energy, but it generally takes a period of time, what we call the keto adaptation. Some people, they never feel better on low carb. And so what I'm getting at is a lot of the reasons why, because I'm an athlete, I should not be feeling better on a low carb diet. But one of the main reasons why this might be the case is because low carb diets require less thiamine. And I was I was actually experiencing severe symptoms of thiamine deficiency back in 2012. Okay, so I have older videos where I talk about this a lot. And I actually released a video where I was taking a B50 complex and magnesium, and I said that it helped to heal my breathlessness and anxiety symptoms. But it only worked temporarily. So this is back in 2012. But the interesting thing is, a B50 complex doesn't contain enough B1 to overcome a thiamine deficiency. But the symptoms that it relieved were directly classic symptoms of B1 deficiency. Magnesium and B1 are both primary cofactors involved that are used in synergy to relieve a B1 deficiency, which I seem to have been suffering from at that time. So around that time, there's a wide variety of things that I was experiencing, but a big one is leading up to what some of these B1 experts call the crash, where everything goes downhill and they experience full-blown symptoms of B1 deficiency. Leading up to that 2 years, my mom had, kicked me out of the house basically, and I had my own money, and I had no supervision from my mother, so I was just consuming all sorts of chocolate and energy drinks. I was consuming like 2 to 4 Monsters a day. It was not uncommon for me to drink a 4-pack of Monster a day. lots of candy bars, lots of refined sugar. And so, I was consuming white pasta that was fortified with B1, but the majority of my energy intake was sugar, refined sugar, without B1 fortification. And I developed a severe deficiency of, I developed like severe fatigue, malaise, and things like that. I did a whole variety of things, and some of which had helped. Of course, the more unrefined my diet became, the better off I felt. I had digestive problems and psoriasis, which I found were directly caused by certain foods, like, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, and these types of things. So, what I'm getting at, though, is it's very, very common for people to overdo it on the refined foods and then experience severe symptoms of B1 deficiency a couple years later, which is exactly what happened to me. And that's the classic lead up to it. And then and then I noticed whenever I drank tea, whenever I would drink wine and stuff like that, depending on the types, I would feel this weird feeling of just restlessness and agitation and tiredness, but restlessness at the same time. Anyway, and only certain things did that, and there were different things that I did to fix it. And going on a low-carb diet, going on a keto diet was like rocket fuel for my brain. And I think part of that might have been because my body was requiring less thiamine. Because literally just before I went on the carnivore diet back in, December 2018, I was eating tons of jasmine rice. At the time, I was under the impression that I was under eating carbs, because I would generally only get 150 grams of carbs a day from white rice. But then I tripled my jasmine rice intake in 2018. And I just noticed a dose-dependent response in my jasmine rice intake and my carbohydrate intake in general, and how bad I felt. Interestingly, when I was eating a whole foods paleo diet, I think that was probably the best that I ever felt, ever. Even when I include a little bit of jasmine rice. And probably that's because I was eating a large amount of pork and beef, and I was also eating a lot of bananas, which contain a lot of B1 compared to the other foods. And I was eating a lot of broccoli too, which contains B1 and folate. But the jasmine rice, is a refined carbohydrate that I allowed in my diet up until I went full-blown carnivore/keto in December of 2018. And interestingly, I actually noticed after a year on keto carnivore, when I started implementing more carbohydrates back in my diet, and I experimented with targeted ketosis, and I did week-long carb experiments and things like that, I didn't feel nearly as bad as I used to. But the longer that I kept those carbs in my diet, specifically the white rice and the refined carbs, the worse I would feel over time. And I thought that maybe that was just because my glycogen was refilling or something. But what I'm thinking is that this might have all been a B1 issue. And so yesterday I started to supplement with thiamine, with B1, just plain thiamine hydrochloride, even though B1, they generally recommend, special forms of it. Anyway, I noticed a significant, I noticed relief in my fatigue and my malaise, and kind of like a lifting of the tension that I felt on my brain. And it's really hard to explain. But I don't feel that I don't even know how to describe it. This weird feeling of tension that I would always feel, as well as I would feel really tired a lot of the time. Now this is irrespective of carnivore or keto. It was it was something that I was able to work through either way. And the thing is, I work out a lot. I'm an extremely busy person who works a lot, and I'm also an extreme athlete who trains a lot. So I've always kind of felt like this fatigue is just the overwhelming workload that I have. Interestingly, I usually feel even worse and more tired on my rest days. But, you know, and I'm not saying I feel debilitatingly ill or anything. I'm not like Frank Tufano type of issues, even though he probably had a B1 deficiency. He's probably his problem too. But what I'm saying is, I might have been B1 deficient for a very long time. And some of the data, some of the information that I've stumbled upon suggests that a lot of people are as well. And there's a lot of people that go carnivore and they still feel fatigued and they still feel these problems. So first and foremost, on a carnivore diet, your B1 intake is extremely low. And I'm not talking about the recommended daily intake, but just in general. It's a mistake that people assume because they're not eating as much carbohydrates on carnivore and keto that they don't need B1. Because you still need B1 for energy production, regardless of whether you're eating carbs or not. And you probably need a lot more, or you probably need a lot less. You need a lot less when you remove carbs. But another thing is, if you've been eating refined carbohydrates your entire life, you know, you could have had a B1 deficiency for decades. And then when you switch to the carnivore diet, let's say you're just eating the muscle meat. You're not getting B1 worth of shit. Let's say you're eating pork as your predominant muscle meat. Well, now you're getting plenty of B1 for somebody who didn't have a previous deficiency. But if you had a previous deficiency, even if you're eating, you know, pork, you're eating kidney, liver, etc., you might feel like crap until you can fulfill the deficiency of thiamine, until you can build your body's stores of thiamine. And so I've been reading thousands and thousands of comments and posts on various groups of carnivore and keto dieters over the last 2 years. And what I found is it's pretty common for people to go carnivore and just feel superhuman. But I don't even know if I'd slap a percentage on this, but a large amount of people go carnivore and they complain about feeling fatigued and tired, you know, a couple months into the diet. Some people say they feel great, and then for whatever reason, 2 years later, they just crash. But the most common thing that happens is people feel fatigued and they have all the same symptoms of thiamine deficiency up until about, and you know, generally people suck at their salt intake, and you know, that's not a lie. And some people, they need to supplement with potassium. But after the 3-month mark of people eating a carnivore diet, if they have, you know, depending on the types, eventually they feel better after a long period of time. And I think that what we're missing here is some of the nutrients that they might have ran a long-term deficiency in before they went carnivore and keto. And then they start eating all this meat, and they're building up their thiamine stores, B12 stores, etc. And then at that point where they do feel better, it's probably because they built their thiamine stores up from all the meat intake, and because they're not consuming carbs, they're sparing thiamine to an extent. So, but you know, I think there's other things to consider too. You know, a lot of these carnivore diet people, they're dogmatic, and you know, they scoff at this. So first of all, I recommend checking out this guy's channel, EO Nutrition, on YouTube. Now, you guys know me, I generally don't recommend things just because I've heard them without intervention trials and things like that. But this guy actually has case studies, case reports, And there's a lot of comments on his videos of people who say that they experience the same thing through their own trial and error. So EO Nutrition, the guy's name is Elliot Ovalton, I believe. He has a video. You can search up Thiamine Carnivore, and he has a video specifically on this topic where people on a carnivore diet went to him, and he put them on a megadose of thiamine along with things like magnesium and ascorbic acid. And within, the same day, a lot of their symptoms went away, and within a matter of weeks, they felt completely better. And so there's a couple there's quite a few symptoms of thiamine deficiency that a lot of people probably fit the bill on. So fatigue, anxiety, heart palpitations, irritability, edema, digestive complaints, weakness, brain fog, anorexia, because your appetite goes down significantly. And don't we hear that a lot? Probably because of ketosis, really. Ataxia, muscle spasms, tachycardia, numbness, chronic pain, cognitive decline, Raynaud's syndrome, insomnia, autonomic imbalance, paresthesia, neuropathy, memory problems, poor peripheral circulation, visual disturbances, and blood pressure asymmetries. So, around the time that I developed the breathlessness, I developed the lethargy, the extreme anxiety and panic attacks, I also experienced nearsighted, like this weird vision imbalance where basically I saw like it was blurry, and it would come in and out, right? I think a lot of that has to do with caffeine intake and things like that, and I noticed it was most significant when I would consume foods and drinks that were high in tannins and things. And I always wondered why things like wine and black tea would mess with my vision. I think it might have to do with thiamine. I'm not sure. I don't think that you get acute effects from tannins if it had to do with B1, but not saying that tea messes me up or anything. Just certain types of tea that are high in tannins seem to. Anyway, I've been supplementing with thiamine for about a day now, and it's not really that long, but I'm already feeling an improvement, and an improvement beyond placebo. I'm talking, I felt so tired, and I haven't exercised in a couple days, actually. I've been trying to take a rest day, and I've been monitoring my heart rate to see if maybe I've been overtraining or something like that. I've been measuring my heart rate variability and resting heart rate. But I felt so exhausted, even though all I did was just lay down all day, because it's a rest day, right? And interestingly, after taking, so I ate some beef and eggs, because you can't just take B1 on an empty stomach, and then I took about 300 milligrams of B1, which is, I don't even know, like 30,000 times the RDA or something like that, or 300 times. This is a lot of B1, and within an hour I felt like I was laying down at first, because I usually feel pretty tired the first hour after eating, and I was laying down, and I went from feeling pretty tired, wanting to scroll through my phone or whatever, to all of a sudden feeling like, why am I fucking laying down? And I just started feeling like I want to clean my house and stuff, which is something that I've been putting off for a long time, and I can never find the, whatever. And then, so I took the thiamine with magnesium and vitamin C, of course, because those are supposedly supposed to work in synergy on this protocol. That's mostly based on case studies, though, and what we know about thiamine deficiency. So anyway, did that, felt better. So then I said, fuck it, I'm going to take another 200 milligrams a couple hours later. So I took another 200 milligrams of thiamine, and this time I took a multivitamin along with a little bit more ascorbic acid and magnesium. But I took a very, very low dose multivitamin I had laying around, and also a B complex that expired in 2017. Because I literally have not taken supplements much besides like herbs and some of the shit that I posted up here on my YouTube channel. But I stopped taking vitamins and all that crap for years, which is one of the reasons why my B supplement expired in 2017. It's just laying around in my damn pantry and whatnot. And I felt a dramatic increase in my well-being. So what's interesting is I felt improvements to an extent kind of like wishy-washy-ish throughout this health journey whenever I would take vitamin C, whenever I would take magnesium, whenever I would take a B complex. But the effects were not the groundbreaking effects that I wanted or that everyone's looking for, right? Now the thiamine seems to be the big thing here, and all of these things have to do with thiamine metabolism. So, you know, B1 was something I was pretty concerned about for a while, because every single diet I've ever been on, every single way of eating I've ever been on has been pretty low in thiamine. I've never been reaching the daily value of thiamine besides when I was really trying on a carnivore diet to hit those. Looking back when I was eating paleo, and especially when I was eating jasmine rice, which was a lot of my so-called healthy eating days because of my digestive problems, I was getting not even 30% of the daily intake of thiamine. Back in the day, you know, even back in 2012, in my older videos where I first were experiencing these problems, people were commenting saying, "Is B1 deficiency?" And it sounded like it based on what very, you know, the clinical signs really are. But I figured, you know, that, well, shit, you know, if I was experiencing that, I'd be in the hospital. There's no way it could be a simple deficiency like that. But now I'm watching these videos and listening to the case reports, Dr. Rosedale and their work, and I'm thinking to myself, holy crap, you know, this may have been the issue all along with vitamin C and other things, because I did experience some gum recession on carnivore. So, or, you know, a couple months before carnivore, actually. So, what else was I going to say? I was going to say something else. Oh yeah, digestive problems, things like irritable bowel syndrome, bloating, IBS, and stuff like that can be caused by B1 deficiency. So, you know, for me, a lot of the reason why I'm not eating the foods that are highest in thiamine is because I had intolerances to those foods, you know, legumes, whole grains, etc. And I kind of just, and because on the paleo diet, I experienced this amazing well-being and all my digestive problems went away, I figured that, oh, maybe these foods are just, you know, high in anti-nutrients, like all these people say, and I'm not denying that, but people have always asked, well, how come all of us on the carnivore diet, we have had trouble digesting these foods, and the problems go away when we remove them? How come there's all these other people who can eat all these foods and they're just fine? Well, part of it might be that they have problems with these foods and don't realize it. Another part of it might be that for whatever reason, they're not as thiamine deficient as you are. And so, you know, it's possible that if you megadose thiamine, all of these problems go away, including these histamine intolerances and digestive problems people experience. If they start to supplement with targeted supplements, things like megadosing vitamin C, getting adequate magnesium, I'm talking 400 milligrams a day split into multiple doses, and then megadosing thiamine in multiple doses along with the ascorbic acid or the vitamin C supplement throughout the day, you know, and maybe taking a high quality multivitamin that includes retinol, because I think a lot of people are probably deficient in vitamin A unless they're eating liver. It includes zinc and copper and iodine, which I think iodine is another thing a lot of people are deficient in, especially people on carnivore diets and on vegan diets too. You know, I think iodine's a huge one. And then probably, you know, supplementing with calcium is probably a good idea. I've found, and so yeah, I mean, there's quite a few others. But look, I'm not I'm not out here stating facts. I'm not out here telling you guys what to do. I'm just sharing a lot of the things that I've kind of like thought and realized and observed, and I'm sharing a resource with you that, this guy, EO Nutrition, Elliot Ovaltine or whatever, he was on one of Sean Baker's podcasts a period of time ago. Research it for yourself and go through trial and error. Look, if you're feeling great, that's good for you. You know what I mean? But, this information is for people who are looking for, the issue that they're experiencing issues and they want to optimize things, etc. B1 has been used by, the nootropic type people, the biohacking crowd for a while as a mood enhancer and an energy enhancer. And they've been used in nootropic stacks and things like that. And it's pretty common for people to take B complex vitamins for stress and feel better. But if you notice that you feel like shit after taking a B complex, it's probably because thiamine can be depleted by other B vitamins. And in order for these B vitamins to even work, like B12 and stuff like that, if you have a B1 deficiency, a thiamine deficiency, then no amount of B complex vitamins and multivitamins and supplements in the world are going to make you feel better, because thiamine is the foundation of energy production. So if you're not producing energy, what do you expect when your coffee doesn't work for you anymore? What do you expect when your multivitamin doesn't work? These herbs that you saw on YouTube don't work anymore. Like, what the hell do you expect if you're not able to produce energy? Obviously, these supplements aren't going to help you. Okay, medications are not going to help you. And just a little caveat, just another to take it further, metformin can deplete thiamine. Birth control can deplete thiamine. A lot of medications can deplete thiamine. Refined carbohydrates can directly deplete your body of thiamine. Coffee and tannins in tea and coffee can actually hinder the absorption. Raw fish like sushi, which is typically served on a bed of refined rice, can also hinder the absorption of thiamine. So, there's a lot of things out there that people don't know that can be creating deficiencies. So, so now if we're talking about dosages and the type, was it TFF? I forgot exactly what the form is that a lot of these functional medicine doctors prescribe. TTFD. TTFD is what a lot of the functional medicine practitioners prescribe, but that's not B1. That's actually a derivative of it. It's pharmaceutically prescribed. Plain old B1, thiamine hydrochloride or whatever, should work just fine for most people, unless you have some kind of problem converting it in the body. If you have some kind of issue with the metabolism of thiamine, then something like solbuthiamine, can't really say it right, solbuthiamine, or there's another one, it starts with a B, I forgot what it's called, but it's claimed to be fat soluble, which it's not necessarily fat soluble, but I think it's partially fat soluble. As weird as it might sound, but anyway, do your research, check it out. Right now I'm basically planning on supplementing with about 1 gram, so 1,000 milligrams of thiamine spread throughout the day. I'm probably going to take, I don't know, like 400 milligrams in the morning, 400 in the afternoon, then 200 in the evening. Take it with food. I'm going to combine it with, I'm going to take a B complex vitamin with one of the doses, and half a dose of like a low dose multivitamin that only contains about 50% of the daily value of all the nutrients. I'm going to also consume magnesium and ascorbic acid alongside it throughout the day, and I'm going to see how it affects me, and I'll report back in a couple weeks. I'll update you guys on how it's going. Talk to you guys later.